Madam Secretary, thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you, Jake.
Appreciate
Good to see you.
So you had some very strong comments about Donald Trump. I asked him about specifically the one where you said that you couldn't trust him with the nuclear codes. It's not tough to imagine him bringing the country into war because somebody got under his very thin skin. That's pretty close to a quote. And his response was, hey, she's the one that voted to go to war in Iraq. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think the speech was really an attempt to present to the American people everything that he has said, what he has proposed that he would do, which violates Republican and Democratic agreement about how to be strong in the world, how to present ourselves, how to protect our allies and our friends, how to take on our rivals where necessary. And I'm happy to put my record up against his comments, his rants, and his outright lies anytime.
But his specific criticism was, why would you accuse me of going to war when you actually brought us into a war that he criticizes as an unnecessary one?
Well, he supported it. We have evidence and audio of him supporting it. So I think that's another example of him trying to rewrite history. But I said, look, it was a mistake to vote for that. But I have a lot more experience as a senator, as Secretary of State, that I am more than happy to talk about throughout this campaign, because when people vote, they are voting for the president, who is our commander-in-chief. And I have said, and I believe this with all my heart, he is not qualified to be commander-in-chief, either by experience, preparation, or temperament.
There were some really ugly images on the TV screen, attacks by anti-Trump protesters against people who support Donald Trump. Do you condemn the violence? What is your message to people who are protesting Donald Trump?
I condemn all violence in our political arena. I condemned it when Donald Trump was inciting it and congratulating people who were engaging in it. I condemn it by those who are taking violent protests to physical assault against Donald Trump. This has to end. He set a very bad example. He created an environment in which it seemed to be acceptable for someone running for president to be inciting violence, to be encouraging his supporters. Now we're seeing people who are against him responding in kind. It should all stop. It is not acceptable.
At the end of the day, do you think that those violent anti-Trump protesters actually might be helping him in a way by showing his opposition in such a horrendous light?
I don't think any of this helps anybody. I don't think his protests that were led by his supporters, beating up people who were peacefully protesting against Trump, helped Trump. And I don't think that people who are protesting and using physical violence against people supporting Trump are helping anybody. So I want it to just end, Jake. I don't want to parse it. I don't want to talk about the political implications. I want it to end. The police have a hard enough job trying to make sure that we're able to gather and talk about the issues facing our country. And Trump has lowered the bar. And now, is it a surprise that people who don't like him are stepping over that low bar? I don't think it is. He needs to condemn all violence by everyone. I already have. I will continue to do so.
The Sanders campaign has been mounting a very strong challenge against you here in California. And in fact, it's neck and neck, according to public polling. Anybody could win. 8 years ago, when you were behind then Senator Obama, although you were closer than Sanders is with you, you said, if Obama is so inevitable, why is he having such a tough time closing the deal? So let me just put it to you. You are inevitable in your view. You will be the nominee. Why is it a tough landing for you in California and elsewhere?
Well, let's see what happens on Tuesday. I'm very proud of the campaign we're running here. And I believe on Tuesday I will have decisively won the popular vote, and I will have decisively won the pledged delegate majority. You can't get much more than that out of a primary season. And in fact, the contest between then Senator Obama and myself was much closer. By some standards, I actually led a little bit in the popular vote, but I fell a little short in the pledged delegates. So I had a decision to make. A lot of my supporters said, hey, let's keep going, let's make sure that we go to the convention. I said, no. I ran to become president because I have deep values and beliefs about what should be done in our country. I am much closer in the goals that I think we should be pursuing with Barack Obama than I am with the Republicans. The same is true with Senator Sanders and myself. We both want to raise the minimum wage. We both want to get to universal health care coverage. We both want to make sure Wall Street never wrecks Main Street again. We share so many of the same goals. We have different approaches, different ideas about how best to achieve those. So if you are a supporter of mine or you're a supporter of Senator Sanders, and you look at this contest, which has been largely on issues, although we've had our differences, compared to the Republican side, which has been largely on insults and plans that never would be feasible.
It's gotten tough with you and Sanders, though. I mean, not as tough,
Well, but it's nothing like what we saw on the Republican side. And so after Tuesday, I'm going to do everything I can to reach out to try to unify the Democratic Party, and I expect Senator Sanders to do the same, and that we will come together and be prepared to go to the convention in a unified way to make our case to leave the convention to go into the general election to defeat Donald Trump.
There's one other thing about Donald Trump I want to ask you, and then I know you have to go, and that is when you were launching your criticism, your attack against Trump University, which is right now in the middle of a civil suit for fraud, the Trump campaign started hitting back by questioning donations to the Clinton Foundation and how the money is spent. There have been questions in the media about that, and I'm not equating Trump University with the Clinton Foundation, but do you think those questions undermined at all your argument against the Trump Foundation, Trump University?
Not at all. I mean, really, this is like an absurd comparison. We have disclosed everything. You can see what we do. We put out reports. We could find you millions of people who feel that their lives have been improved because of the work. Contrast that, the Attorney General of New York has said that Trump U is basically a fraud. It's a fraud where Donald Trump has preyed on people, has taken them by asking them to max out their credit cards to a point of financial despair and walked away. So I will let the lawsuits go on. I think it's very clear, even from the testimony we've already heard about from his close associates, that even people working in it call it fraudulent. And, you know, look, he has to answer to that.
Madam Secretary, thanks so much. Good luck in California. I know
Thank you.
It's a tough race you got.
Well, we're doing well. We're going to go all the way to the finish line.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.